The morning sun rose over the beautiful city of Lagos, casting a golden hue on the luxurious estate of the Okoye family. Inside the grand mansion, the youngest daughter Adaeze stood before a massive mirror, her ivory wedding gown cascading like a waterfall around her. This was the day she had dreamt of since she was a little girl. The grand ballroom was adorned with crystal chandeliers and fresh white roses flown in from South Africa. Guests were arriving in droves, dressed in flamboyant abadas and sequin asoebi, ready to witness what promised to be the most glamorous wedding of the year. Adaeze couldn't shake her anxiety. Her mother, Nneka, fussed over every detail, from the perfect placement of her veil to the seating arrangement of prominent guests. Adaeze's fiancé, Chijioke, was everything she had prayed for: charming, successful, and deeply in love with her. Yet, there was something unsettling about the way her mother's hands trembled as she adjusted Adaeze's necklace. Nneka seemed distracted, almost as if she was dreading something. But Adaeze brushed it off. Today was supposed to be perfect. In the main hall, the Okoye siblings argued over the extravagance of the wedding. Uche, the eldest brother, thought it was a waste of money, while Chisa, the second daughter, defended their mother's decision. Adaeze had always been their father's favorite, and her wedding reflected it, even though he was no longer alive to witness it. The Okoye patriarch Chief Emeka had passed away 5 years ago, leaving Nneka to manage the family's fortune. As Adaeze descended the staircase, her siblings fell silent. She was radiant, her gown gleaming under the light. The tension dissipated for a moment as everyone admired her beauty. Even Uche, known for his gruff demeanor, softened. "You look like a queen," he said, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. But as Adaeze smiled, she noticed her uncle, Ifeanyi, lurking in the shadows, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Uncle Ifeanyi had not been a part of the family for over a decade. After a heated fallout with Chief Emeka, he had disappeared, only resurfacing sporadically at family events. His presence at the wedding was a surprise to many. Nneka, spotting him from across the room, stiffened. She walked over to him, her face a mask of politeness. "What are you doing here, Ifeanyi?" she asked through gritted teeth. "I came to celebrate my niece," he replied with a smirk. "Unless, of course, you prefer I leave." Nneka glanced around to ensure no one overheard their conversation. "Don't cause a scene. This is Adaeze's day." Ifeanyi leaned closer, his voice low but menacing. "We both know there is more to this day than a wedding, Nneka. The truth has a funny way of surfacing." Before she could respond, Ifeanyi disappeared into the crowd, leaving Nneka shaking. She had worked tirelessly to bury the past, but Ifeanyi's presence threatened to unravel everything she had fought to protect. As the wedding preparations continued, whispers of discontent swirled among the Okoye siblings. Uche, always the pragmatist, confronted Nneka about the expenses. "Mother, do you think all of this is necessary? We are spending millions on a single day." Nneka waved him off. "This is not just a wedding, Uche. This is about legacy. Adaeze deserves the best." "But at what cost?" "Father wouldn't have approved of this," Uche retorted, his tone laced with frustration. "Your father isn't here, is he?" Nneka snapped, her composure slipping for the first time. "I'm doing what needs to be done." Chisom stepped in, trying to diffuse the situation. "Uche, let it go. This is Adaeze's day. Can we not fight for once?" But the tension lingered, casting a shadow over the joyous occasion. Nneka retreated to her room, clutching a photo of her late husband, Emeka. She whispered, "I hope I'm doing the right thing." As the clock ticked closer to the ceremony, Adaeze noticed Chijioke stepping away from the crowd to answer a phone call. He was speaking in hushed tones, his back turned to her. Adaeze approached him, but he ended the call abruptly, before she could hear anything. "Who was that?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Just a friend," Chijioke replied, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Nothing important." Adaeze nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Chijioke had been distant lately, and now, on the biggest day of their lives, he seemed distracted. She pushed the thought aside, convincing herself it was just pre-wedding nerves. After all, nothing could go wrong today, or so she thought. The family hosted a lavish pre-wedding dinner, attended by close friends and relatives. The evening was meant to be a celebration, but the atmosphere was anything but joyful. Ifeanyi's presence loomed over the event like a dark cloud. He sat at the far end of the table, sipping wine and watching the family with a sly smile. Nneka kept her composure, but her eyes betrayed her fear. Uche and Chisa sat on either side of her, ready to intervene if Ifeanyi caused trouble. Adaeze, oblivious to the undercurrents of tension, tried to enjoy the evening, but Chijioke's distant behavior continued to bother her. As the dinner wound round, Ifeanyi stood to make a toast. "To Adaeze and Chijioke," he said, raising his glass. "May their union be as honest as the strong foundation it's built on." The words were innocuous enough, but the pointed way he looked at Nneka made her stomach churn. She excused herself from the table, leaving her children to cover for her absence. That night, Nneka lay awake, haunted by memories of her husband's infidelity. She had discovered the affair years ago, but Emeka had begged for forgiveness, promising it was over. She stayed for the sake of the children, but her trust in him was shattered. Now, Ifeanyi was threatening to dredge up the past, and she feared it would destroy Adaeze's happiness. She considered confronting him, but decided against it. Ifeanyi thrived on confrontation, and she didn't want to give him the satisfaction. As she stared at the ceiling, a single thought consumed her. What if Adaeze finds out? The day of the wedding arrived with a pomp and splendor the Okoye family had promised. The wedding venue sparkled with golden decor, fresh roses, and an air of anticipation. Guests filled the lavish hall, whispering about the extravagance of the event. Adaeze, resplendent in her custom-designed gown, took a deep breath as the wedding march began to play. All eyes were on her as she walked down the aisle on Uche's arm, her face a picture of serenity despite the unease swelling inside her. Chijioke waited at the altar, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, his expression unreadable. He smiled as Adaeze approached, but there was something distant in his eyes that made her stomach knot. As they stood before the officiant, the crowd hushed. This was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life. Just as the officiant asked the fateful question, if anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. A voice rang out from the back of the hall. I have a reason. Gasps filled the room as Uncle Ifeanyi strode confidently down the aisle. The once distant hum of whispers erupted into chaos. Adaeze's heart pounded in her chest as she turned to see the man she had been told to ignore. Nneka stood up abruptly, her face drained of color. Ifeanyi, this is not the time. Nneka hissed, trying to intervene, but Ifeanyi ignored her. I apologize for the interruption, he began, addressing the crowd. But this is a matter of truth and justice. Adaeze deserves to know who she is marrying. Adeze's hand shook as she looked at the Chijioke, who avoided her gaze. What is he talking about? She whispered, panic setting in. Chijioke opened his mouth to respond, but Ifeanyi was quicker. Chijioke is the product of an affair between your father, Chief Emeka, and another woman. The silence that followed was deafening. Adaeze staggered back, her words tilting on its axis. What? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs in the room. Lies! Nneka shouted, stepping forward, her composure finally cracking. This man is here to destroy our family. But Ifeanyi, unbothered by her outburst, held up a folder. These are the documents proving Emeka's paternity. DNA tests, letters, financial transactions, it's all here. Chijioke finally spoke, his voice trembling. Adaeze, I didn't know until recently. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't mean to hurt me? Adeze's voice rose, tears streaming down her face. You knew and you let me walk down that aisle? I didn't want to lose you, Chijioke admitted, his eyes pleading. I thought it wouldn't matter if we loved each other. It wouldn't matter? Adeze's voice rose, drawing the attention of the guests once more. You thought I could marry the son of my father's mistress and just pretend everything was fine? I love you, Adaeze, he said desperately. That hasn't changed. Adaeze laughed bitterly. You don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have lied. Before Chijioke could respond, Adaeze turned on her heel and stormed out of the hall, leaving Chijioke and the stunned crowd behind. As Adaeze fled the scene, Nneka stood frozen, her carefully constructed composure slipping further with each passing second. Ifeanyi took a step forward, his smirk widening. You've been the perfect actress, Nneka, but it's time for the truth. What truth? Chisom asked, stepping forward to shield her mother. Uncle Ifeanyi, you've done enough. Have I? Ifeanyi countered. Because Nneka still hasn't admitted most important part of all this. What is he talking about, Mama? Uche demanded, his voice low but sharp. Nneka closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. She had fought for so long to keep her family intact, but now the lies were too heavy to bear. I knew about Emeka's affair, she whispered. I've known for years. Her children gasped, their faces a mixture of shock and betrayal. Nneka continued, her voice trembling. Your father confessed it to me. He begged me to forgive him, to keep it from you all. He said he wanted to protect his family's reputation, and I agreed. You knew he had another child and you stayed silent? Uche asked, his voice filled with disbelief. I did it for all of you, Nneka said, her voice cracking. I thought if the truth came out, it would destroy us. I didn't want to see this family torn apart. Well, congratulations, Mama, Chisom said bitterly. It's torn apart now. The siblings gathered in a side room of the venue, their voices raised in heated arguments. Adaeze had not returned and the guests were left awkwardly milling about, unsure of what to do. You knew, Uche accused, pointing at Nneka. You let Adaeze walk into this mess blind. She was trying to protect us, Chisom said, though her voice lacked conviction. Protect us from what? Uche shot back. From the truth? Look where that has gotten us. Chisom turned to Nneka. Why didn't you tell us? We are your children. We deserve to know. I thought I was doing what's best, Nneka said, her voice breaking. I didn't want you to see your father the way I did. Well, now we do, Uche said coldly. And I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. As the Okoye family battled internally, Chijoke's family entered the scene. His mother, Nkechi, stood into the room, her face a mixture of anger and defiance. What have you done to my son? She demanded. What have we done? Uche snapped. Your son lied to our sister. He didn't lie, Nkechi retorted. He didn't even know the truth until recently. And when he found out, he tried to do the right thing. By staying silent, Chisom interjected. How is that the right thing? Nkechi sighed. I wanted to protect him. He didn't ask for this. None of us did. Your father was the one who made these choices. Don't you dare speak about my father, Nneka said, stepping forward. Her voice was icy, her composure restored. You were complicit in this. You knew he was married and you pursued him anyway. And you think your hands are clean? Nkechi shot back. You knew and stayed. At least I had the courage to leave when I realized what kind of man he was. The tension in the room was suffocating for a moment. No one spoke. Then Chijoke, who had been standing silently in the corner, finally spoke. Enough! This isn't solving anything. Outside, the guests began to leave as word spread that the wedding had been called off. Adaeze had disappeared, her phone switched off. Chijoke stood at the altar alone, staring at the now empty seats where their friends and family had once sat. He felt hollow. All he wanted was to build a life with Adaeze, but now everything was in ruins. He turned to his mother, who placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Come home, she said softly. But Chijoke shook his head. I need to make this right. As the hall emptied and the Okoye family fractured further, it became clear that this was just the beginning of their unraveling. Adaeze sat in the quiet of her best friend Amaka's apartment, staring blankly at the wall. Her gown, now crumpled and stained, hung on the chair beside her. She had run out of the wedding hall without a destination in mind, eventually calling Amaka, who had whisked her away from the chaos. How could they do this to me? Adaeze whispered, her voice raw from crying. My mother, Chijoke, everyone knew something and they all stayed silent. Amaka knelt in front of her, holding her hands. Adaeze, I know this is devastating, but you need to give yourself time to process. This wasn't your fault, wasn't it? Adaeze said bitterly. I trusted them. I trusted Chijoke with my life, and now I found out my father, my own father, betrayed us all. Amaka hesitated, unsure of what to say. What do you want to do next? Are you ready to talk to your family? Adaeze shook her head vehemently. No, not yet. I can't face them right now. As Amaka wrapped her in a hug, Adaeze silently vowed to uncover every secret her family had hidden from her. She was done being in the dark. Back at the Okoye mansion, the fallout from the wedding scandal continued. Photos and videos of dramatic interruption had already gone viral, with hashtags like Okoye wedding scandal and bride storm out trending on social media. Nneka sat in the living room, scrolling through her phone in horror. Headlines screamed accusations, wealthy Igbo family's wedding disaster, and secrets of the late Chief Emeka revealed. This is a PR nightmare, Chisa muttered, pacing the room. Do you see what people are saying? They are calling us frauds, hypocrites, and worse. Let them talk, Uche said coldly. None of this would have happened if you, Mama, and Adaeze had been honest from the start. Nneka slammed her phone down. Don't you dare put this on Adaeze. She didn't know anything. And whose fault is that? Uche retorted. You kept this from all of us. Now we are the ones left to clean up the mess. As the siblings argued, Nneka's phone rang. It was a journalist requesting a comment. She ignored the call. her mind racing. How could she fix this? How could she salvage what left of her family's reputation? Adaeze spent the next few days digging into her father's past. She scoured old photos, documents, and even social media posts, determined to piece together the truth. Amaka helped her, bringing her laptop over so they could work together. "Look at this," Amaka said, pointing to a blurry photo of an old blog. It showed Chief Emeka at a gala, standing next to a woman who looked strikingly like Chijioke. "That's his mother," Adaeze said, her stomach twisting. "She was part of his life even back then." "Do you think your mother knew?" Amaka asked cautiously. "She knew," Adaeze said firmly. "She's been lying to us for years. They all have." Fueled by anger and betrayal, Adaeze drafted an email to her siblings. In it, she demanded a family meeting to confront the lies and secrets that had torn them apart. "They want to protect our father's image? Fine, but not at the expense of my happiness." Amaka looked at her worriedly. "Are you sure about this?" Adaeze nodded. "It's time to stop running." The family meeting was tense. Nneka, Uche, and Chisom sat on one side of the living room, while Adaeze sat on the other, her arms crossed. The tension was palpable. Before anyone could speak, the doorbell rang. It was Nkechi, Chijioke's mother. "What is she doing here?" Nneka demanded, rising to her feet. "I invited her," Adaeze said, her voice calm but firm. "If we are going to air out all our dirty laundry, we might as well do it properly." Nkechi entered the room, her posture regal, despite the circumstances. "Thank you for inviting me, Adaeze. I believe it's time we had this conversation." Nneka glared at her. "You have no right to be here, and yet here I am," Nkechi replied. She turned to Adaeze. "Your father and I had an affair, yes, but it wasn't the love story you might think. I was young and desperate, and he took advantage of me." Adaeze's chest tightened. "And Chijioke? Did he know all of this?" "No," Nkechi said softly. "I kept him out of it. I wanted him to have a chance at a normal life. But now it seems the sins of the past have caught up with us all." The revelations left everyone in the room gripping with conflicting emotions. The revelations left the room heavy with tension. Adaeze remained seated, her arms crossed, glaring at her mother. "You kept us in the dark for years, Mama. And now this. Do you know how humiliating this is for me? For all of us?" Nneka closed her eyes, her voice trembling as she replied, "I know, Adaeze. I have made mistakes, and I'll carry the weight of them for the rest of my life. But I did it because I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting us from what?" Uche interjected, his tone sharp. "The truth? Do you know how much worse this feels now? You robbed us of the chance to deal with this as a family." Nkechi, sitting on the opposite couch, cleared her throat. "If I may," she began, her voice calm but firm. "I didn't come here to justify what happened between Emeka and me. What we did was wrong, and I've had to live with that shame. But I also won't let you all place the blame solely on Nneka. Your father was a flawed man, but so are many of us." Uche scoffed, shaking his head. "This isn't about placing blame. This is about accountability. For years, we've built our lives on lies, and now we are the ones paying the price." Adaeze turned to Nkechi. "What do you want from us? Why are you here now?" Nkechi looked directly at Adaeze, her gaze unwavering. "I came because I wanted to help you understand. Your father may have made terrible choices, but he did love all of you. He struggled with guilt until the day he died, and I think he hoped that one day his family would find a way to heal." Adaeze let out a bitter laugh. "Heal? After all this? I can't even look at any of you the same way anymore." Nneka stood there, her hands trembling. "I won't pretend that this is easy, Adaeze. I've made my peace with Emeka's betrayal. but I can't lose my children because of these mistakes. We have to find a way to move forward. Adaeze stared at her mother for a long moment, her face a mixture of anger and sadness. Moving forward doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. I need time. I need space. Nkechi stood, gathering her pulse. I've said my piece. I'll leave you all to figure out the rest. But, Nneka, if you ever want to talk, really talk, I'm willing to listen. As Nkechi left, the silence in the room was deafening. The siblings exchanged glances, unsure of what to say next. Finally, Adaeze stood and walked towards the door. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk, but for now, I need to be alone. Uche and Chisom didn't stop her, and Nneka sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. She had fought so hard to protect her family, but now she feared she might lose them anyway. Chijioke sat alone in his apartment, staring at the engagement ring he had planned to place on Adaeze's finger. The memories of her walking away from the altar replayed in his mind like a bad dream. He had never felt so powerless. He thought back to the moment he had discovered the truth about his father. It had been a shock, learning that the man he'd admired from afar was the same man who had betrayed his family. But Chijioke had convinced himself it wouldn't matter. He loved Adaeze, and love was supposed to conquer all. Yet here he was, alone, with nothing but regret for company. His mother Nkechi entered the room, her expression solemn. Chijioke, you've been sitting here all day. You need to eat. I don't care about food, he muttered. I care about Adaeze. She's hot, but she's strong, Nkechi said, sitting beside him. You need to give her time. And you need to think about how you are going to make this right. Chijioke looked at his mother, his eyes filled with determination. I won't give up on her. I'll do whatever it takes to earn her trust again. Meanwhile, the Okoye family faced a new challenge. Their business empire was beginning to suffer. Investors were pulling out of deals, wary of the scandal that had tarnished the family name. Uche spent hours on the phone trying to reassure stakeholders, but the damage had already been done. This is a disaster, Uche said during a tense family meeting. Our reputation is in shambles, and the media won't stop talking about us. Maybe we should make a public statement, Chisom suggested, something to address the rumors and show that we are united. United? Uche scoffed. We can't even agree in this room. How are we supposed to convince the world that we are fine? Adaeze, who had reluctantly joined the meeting, finally spoke up. Maybe we don't have to pretend we are fine. Maybe we just have to be honest. Her words hung in the air, met with silence. Nneka looked at her youngest daughter, a mixture of pride and sadness in her eyes. What do you suggest? She asked. We tell the truth, Adaeze said simply, about everything. As the family grappled with their next step, Uncle Ifeanyi was enjoying his newfound notoriety. Journalists reached out to him for interviews, eager to hear more about the scandal he had exposed. But his arrogance would soon be undoing. Uche, determined to protect the family's remaining dignity, began digging into Ifeanyi's past. What he discovered was a trail of embezzlement and fraud. Ifeanyi had not only stolen money from the family business years ago, but he had also been involved in shady deals with rival companies. Armed with this information, Uche confronted Ifeanyi at a public event. You claim to be the man of truth, Uche said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. But the truth is, you've been stealing from this family for years. Ifeanyi tried to deny it, but Uche presented documents that left no room for doubt. The crowd turned against Ifeanyi, and his reputation was shattered. He left Lagos in disgrace, his plans for revenge untimely backfiring. After Ifeanyi's disgraceful exit from Lagos, the Okoye family finally felt a glimmer of relief. However, their wounds was far from healed. The siblings and Nneka sat in the mansion's living room, the tension palpable as they considered the next step. Nneka broke the silence. I know we've been through hell, and I know I've hurt all of you. But I need you to know that I'm ready to take responsibility for everything, no more secrets. Adaeze, still guarded, spoke first. Mama, we can't undo the past, but moving forward starts with honesty. If we are going to rebuild, it has to be on the truth. Chisa nodded in agreement. The charity work we are doing is a good start, but we need to address the elephant in the room. Our reputation is still in tatters. I've been thinking about this, Uche said, his voice steady. We need to take control of the narrative. If we don't, the media will keep twisting our story. Adaeze hesitated before speaking. What if we gave a public interview? One where we tell our side of the story. Everything, the mistakes, the lesson, the truth. Nneka stiffened. The idea of exposing their private lives to the public unnerving her. But after a moment she nodded. If that's what it takes to bring peace to this family, I'll do it. The decision wasn't easy, but they knew it was necessary. The family arranged for a sit-down interview with a prominent journalist. In the days leading up to it, they prepared themselves, revisiting painful memories and rehearsing their words. When the day of the interview arrived, the family sat together, united but nervous. The journalist, a seasoned professional, began with a gentle question. Why are you choosing to speak now? Nneka stood and took a deep breath before answering. Because silence has cost us too much. For years, we've hidden behind secrets, thinking we were protecting each other, but those secrets only tore us apart. The siblings shared their perspectives, addressing the scandal with humility and honesty. Adaeze spoke about her heartbreak and her journey towards forgiveness, while Uche and Chisa discussed their efforts to rebuild the family's legacy. We are not perfect, Nneka concluded, but her voice trembling with emotion. But we've learned that love and honesty are the only foundations that matter. The interview aired the following week and was met with a mix of reactions. Some praised their courage, while others remained skeptical. But for the Okoye family, it was a step towards healing, and that was all that mattered. As the months passed, the family began to find their rhythm again. Adaeze threw herself into advocacy work, hosting events and mentorship programs for young women. Chiso's leadership in the family foundation brought them closer to the community, while Uche stabilized the business with new ethical policies. One evening, Adaeze received a call from Jide, the co-worker who had quietly supported her through the tumultuous months. Adaeze, he said warmly, I've been thinking about you. How about dinner tomorrow? She smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. I'd like that. Their relationship grew slowly, built on trust and mutual respect. Jide's patience and sincerity were a stark contrast to the chaos she had endured. Over time, their bond deepened and Jide became an integral part of her life. Months later, during a quiet getaway to Obudu Mountain Resort, Jide proposed. Adaeze, he said, holding her hands, I know you've been through so much, but I want to spend the rest of my life proving that love can be honest, safe, and beautiful. Will you marry me? Tears welled in Adaeze's eyes as she nodded. Yes, Jide, I will marry you. The wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended only by close family and friends. Adaeze walked down the aisle in a simple gown, her heart filled with hope. This time, it wasn't about appearance or societal expectation. It was about love. After the ceremony, the Okoye family gathered for a quiet reception at the mansion. There was laughter, dancing, and a warmth that hadn't been felt in years. As the evening wound down, Nneka raised a toast. To family, she said, her voice filled with emotion. For better or worse, we are stronger together. The clinking of glasses echoed through the room, a symbol of their renewed unity. For the first time in years, the Okoye family felt whole. Their journey had been painful, but it had also been transformative. They had faced their demons, rebuilt their bonds, and found a way to move forward. As the family sat together, sharing stories and laughter, Adaeze looked around the room, her heart swelled with gratitude. They weren't perfect, but they were hers, and they were enough.